Welcome to Purdue University College of Science Superheroes of Science podcast. I'm Stephen.
And I'm Sarah. We will be discussing anything and everything related to the science classroom and interviewing scientists.
Because as we know, scientists are the superheroes behind the science.
So join us as we learn about the scientists and explore current trends in K-12 science education. Welcome to a special edition of Superheroes of Science. We are here at Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley, California, and we have the lovely Jessica Taylor, NASA physical scientist at the NASA Langley facility. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
And it's special because you're here.
It is.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's special to be here at the Lawrence Hall of Science.
It is pretty cool. It's his first time been here.
Yeah. I've never been to this part of California, but I have read so much of Lawrence Hall of Science work in the science education arena that it's exciting to be here and see how they put some of those practices that they publish into their work.
Yes, it is.
It is.
I like that. All right, NASA physical scientist. What does that mean?
Yeah, so at NASA Langley Research Center, I work in what's called the Science Directorate, and our area of prime research is atmospheric science. And atmospheric science is basically a physical science. In other words, it's a physics-based, it's an application of physics. Studying meteorology is an application of physics. So understanding and taking coursework in physics is really helpful to then getting you into atmospheric science. And in fact, my degree is in meteorology, but many people have come to us through actually the lines of physics, and sometimes even through oceanography and other applied sciences.
So you were speaking about physics as it applies to meteorology, but then also to atmospheric science.
Yeah, so I oftentimes think of meteorology and atmospheric science as interchangeable disciplines.
Okay.
They're really, for all practical purposes, they're studying the atmosphere.
Okay.
And I went to school at Florida State and wanted to go into meteorology. And in order to do that, I learned a lot about what of the coursework was required. And like many sciences, there is a fair amount of math required and a fair amount of science. But in terms of thinking about, in high school, there's biology and there's chemistry and maybe physics. It's really on the physics end of science. Not to say that those other science disciplines don't come into play. They certainly do. And, I'm lucky enough to work at NASA, first of all, which is, by the way, a very cool place to work. There's always something very exciting happening at NASA. But within the building that I work with in terms of other atmospheric sciences, there are people that are focused, say, on chemistry and looking at chemical reactions in the atmosphere and things such as air quality. Mm-hmm. Air quality is really more on a chemistry side of the house. So it's important to kind of think about all of those sciences, but not get too hung up on any one, because once you start kind of thinking about the practice of science and just getting into thinking like a scientist in terms of asking questions and following sort of the science practice of asking questions, researching, and trying to analyze and figure things out, that's really the most important parts of being a scientist, whether it's a specific chemistry or physics class that you ever took.
So it doesn't matter if I'm in chemistry class, I could still think about a physics question in chemistry, or I could still think about doing a graph that maybe I would only do in math class, but I could think about that in chemistry.
Yeah, but that's a great point, because I think, in school, it makes sense that we teach a lot of these classes as independent things. But in life and in working in the profession of a scientist or anyone in a STEM discipline, you take all of these components of doing math, kind of your basic lessons learned in science, and you have to use them all together. You basically integrate them all together to be able to answer questions. You can't underestimate English, too. Your ability to communicate in written and spoken word is also a really critical part of science.
That's a good point. That's very good.
That's a really good. I mean, especially we're from Purdue, Indiana, or Indiana, the state of Indiana for university, and the teachers we work with, there are language arts standards in our science classes.
Yes,
that's fantastic.
And so they're actually covering and teaching aspects of language arts through science.
Yeah, because I think it's very different to, reading a novel is not the same thing as maybe reading a scientific text.
Yes.
Right? And writing scientific text is a little bit different, but the scientists that I see that do the best job of communicating their science are also just great storytellers, and they do that practice of, I have an introductory paragraph, and I'm going to tell you what my supporting paragraphs are, and I'm going to conclude it. Those are the best communicators of science, is just following those basic practices.
I love that. I love linking storytelling to being a good scientist.
Yeah.
I think that's that's just naturally going to draw people's attention.
And it's important.
What kind of programs are you working on in your position? I know I jumped just over there a little bit.
That's okay.
I want to go back to what you do. What you do?
Yeah. What I do.
We're working on English later.
We'll go back to those English classes. Perhaps the question is what I do?
That would be it.
So, atmospheric science, that background in atmospheric science kind of opened the door to my position at NASA Langley because, again, we are a science-based organization. But I also have a degree in education, in science education specifically. And one of the things that NASA feels very strongly in is about educating and about providing opportunities for all learners, from K to Gray, we say, from K to Gray, opportunities for learners to become more scientifically literate, but also to become a part of NASA and be able to engage even just a little bit with the NASA mission and what NASA does. And so I feel very fortunate that I can combine my science hat and my education hat in my specific program. So my title is physical scientist. What I actually do is I'm the lead of a science education team. And what we create resources, we provide opportunities, particularly for teachers to engage with NASA science. And so some of those resources are web-based resources. So my team manages My NASA Data, which is an opportunity for teachers to have direct access to NASA satellite data in Earth science to teach about Earth systems phenomena. And so we curate, we kind of are the people that look through all the NASA data, and then we decide which NASA data is most appropriate from the teacher perspective to be able to then teach that phenomena. And so in that team, though, I have educators, we have scientists, we have computer scientists, and we have communicators all working in that team together. So that's an important component also, I think, of people thinking about what teaming is. And a team at NASA isn't very different than a team at any other location, is that you bring a lot of different people together with different backgrounds to be able to figure it out. And so for us, we have this eclectic team of educators and scientists and computer scientists. Which, again, being able to communicate as a team, very important.
Well, that just kind of brings up just I didn't even think about this, but as you're describing these different roles and that you work together in a team, I know as a teacher, sometimes it was challenging for me to form groups in the classroom.
Yeah.
And this sounds exactly like the sorts of things, maybe on a very micro scale.
Yeah.
But what suggestions do you have? Because I think that's an important thing that you just have to learn as you grow, is how to work together in a team. I know some students are more comfortable working alone, but I think they need to stretch themselves a little bit and see how to work. But that can be difficult as a teacher to facilitate group work.
Yeah.
So from your experience, and especially coming from an educational background, do you have any advice for teachers in constructing groups within the classroom?
So there actually is a book believe it or not, on how NASA puts together teams.
Wow.
And I couldn't tell you if it costs money or doesn't cost money. I don't know off the top of my head. But I know that there have been teachers that I've met, particularly teachers that work in sort of design thinking courses, who have the opportunity to teach a class like that, who have used this concept of NASA, how NASA builds teams to do that. In practical life, though, we're not opening a book. I'm not able to do an assessment every single time. And so creating a team is, I think, from me as the leader or the teacher as the leader of the classroom, is really about doing those quick formative assessments of, is this going well? You know, is everyone on the team being able to have a voice? If not, do I need to help call them out and say, not call them out in terms of being quiet, but call them forward and invite them to share. Something that I learned from a Sci Girls training. So sorry, I'm the one now switching around here. So Sci Girls is this PBS television show and a bunch of resources that NSF also funds, and it's about engaging girls in science. Okay. And I participated in one of their teacher training workshops, and providing direct, specific feedback to students on something that they did well that they can control. In other words, something such as, I really like how you incorporated this friend's comments into your next steps. We oftentimes provide feedback in student groups about whether or not they got something right. And that might not necessarily be something immediately in their control, right? So this idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. They either know something or they don't know something would be fixed mindset. In a growth mindset, we would applaud and encourage those things that they can control, and even provide comment and encouragement on things like teamwork. Being able to say, I really like that you sat down and everyone shared their thoughts before you made a decision about what to do next. So being very specific about that feedback, but about those things that made them better as a team, are things that I think teachers naturally notice, but we might not always take the time to share with students that feedback, that was something that they did really well to help their team out in the end.
I like that.
And I try to do that. So I took that class from an educator perspective, but I'll say that in my work, I still am doing some of that. I'm still saying to team members, just because that course was for teachers about students, it was still applicable to me now, where I can say to someone, I really appreciated how, you gave me a draft of that before I walked into a meeting, so I knew what I was talking about, right?
And people feel, and then they're going to look to do better because you pointed out that it's valued.
Right.
It'll be in their conscious minds to continue.
Yeah, you don't know if nobody tells you.
Right.
And so having that feedback is really helpful.
That's a good point.
So you work with quite a number of programs, including like the Sci Girls that you just mentioned.
Yeah, so Sci Girls is a component, and I got to go to Sci Girls through my Globe work.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if your podcast listeners already know about Globe.
Tell us about Globe.
So Globe is an international science and education program that engages this worldwide community of teachers, students, scientists, and the general public in learning about their environment and thinking about things in their local environment for the application to global scale. And I love the Globe program. I have been a part of the Globe program since I was a Globe student. And I am lucky enough now at NASA Langley that is one of the programs that we work with. NASA Langley is what's called a Globe partner, and we do Globe teacher workshops.
So you were a Globe student.
I was a Globe student at Florida State. So once I already went into undergraduate, I didn't have the opportunity. Many Globe kids, I like to tell them, if they're starting at like 3rd grade or 7th grade, they're way advanced than me. I came into Globe in undergrad, and I really do credit the GLOBE program with helping me better understand what being a scientist is, and giving me, specifically me, giving me confidence in understanding science and having that practice of doing science that then helped me go into my profession now. So what I mean by doing science is at Florida State, I worked with my major professor, who Paul Ruscher, who's my mentor, and he was a GLOBE principal investigator. So he developed the clouds protocol and the relative humidity protocol. And so when I started as a freshman, I, through amazing circumstances, a high school teacher saw my name on an application for the American Meteorological Society. So let me back up for a second. So I knew that I wanted to go into meteorology, not until the end of high school, when I was trying to figure out, what do you want to do? I love lightning. I grew up in the lightning capital of the world, in Tampa, Florida. There is always a lightning storm, and I just thought it was really cool. And so one of my teachers said, well, why don't you do a project on it? And I learned that scientists did not know why exactly lightning formed and how it formed. And I just thought it was the coolest thing that you could have a job that was learning. That is the job of scientists, is to learn something that maybe nobody else knows about yet. Mm-hmm. That just really appealed to me. And so from that moment, which was probably maybe 11th grade, that's when I finally realized, oh, well, maybe that's something I can do. And so I applied for a scholarship from the American Meteorological Society, and I did not get it. I didn't get the scholarship. I just got a letter that said, thank you for your application. You were not selected. Well, unbeknownst to me, somebody on that board was a science teacher from my high school, who I had never met, but he recognized my name and my school affiliation, and he knew Paul Ruscher at Florida State. And he could see from my application that that's where I was going. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, I saw that you applied for this scholarship, but you know what I can do is I can help connect you to this professor at Florida State, and maybe you can work with him. So how cool is that?
Right? That is so cool. I mean, that is everything. Apply, reach out.
Absolutely. First of all, you can't get it if you don't apply.
Yes.
And second of all, there could be other things that you either learn about yourself or other doors that open up from applying and then not getting it, right?
Yeah, right.
So I didn't get the scholarship. Yeah. But what I got was this great connection. Mm-hmm. So then Paul connected me with being a part of the GLOBE program. And that's how I'm here today. And so what I did though in GLOBE was I went outside like all other GLOBE students, and I made observations. So I was interested in atmosphere, so I did clouds observations, relative humidity, precipitation, pressure. I did all of that on a very hot, because it was a tar roof in Florida.
Oh my goodness.
And then I was looking at solar noon, which is the time when the sun is most directly overhead. It was very hot, but I learned so much. Yeah, and that's how I'm here today.
But speaking of, well, you didn't get that scholarship.
Yeah.
But did I not see recently you did get recognized in an award?
I did win and was honored with the Women of Color Award for some of my efforts in working with students of color and really promoting women in science. So, yes, I was honored with that. Thank you very much.
That is awesome.
That's so awesome.
And don't be humble and meet about it. This is something that's so awesome, and we're glad to know you.
I'm glad to know you too.
Not just work with you, we're so privileged to be able to work with you, to interact with you professionally is awesome. And it's, heck, we've met your husband. We use some of your husband's stuff in our things. We use your stuff.
He's a climate scientist, everyone. He also works at NASA. And we met at Florida State in meteorology. So there you go. It's all connected.
So guys listening to this, you're wanting an attractive, really smart gal, go into science now. All right, so advice to someone. Let's go with the advice thing. What do you tell, let's go with that student out there. It's like, I'm just not sure, okay, she's really smart, she could do that, but I just don't know if I could do that.
Yeah.
What do you tell them?
My best advice is begin to build up your community of mentors.
What's a mentor?
So a mentor is someone I think that you look up to who helps provide you with guidance, but not necessarily answers your questions for you, but is there to support you. And I think you need people to support you in life, not in life in general. If you were in sports, you would have coaches. You would have people that continue to encourage you. Mm-hmm. Your education, your schooling is the same way. Your kind of career path is that same thing. There are going to be times where you don't know what to do. There's also going to be times where you don't think you can do it. And that path is then easier if you can begin to collect people who you know will be on your side and continue to encourage you. And so that could be a mentor that's a teacher. It could be someone who is in your family. I also don't discount peer mentors and peer support. But I think that had I been building that starting in high school, going into college, and kind of thinking at that lens, it could have possibly made going through college easier, because there's always hard times no matter what you're doing. There's always going to be times where you absolutely bomb an exam. Mm-hmm. And doubt whether or not that entire career path is the one for you. And so having a few people to talk to, and then in lieu of that, I know lots of my colleagues are also really into journaling and leaving themselves some of these notes about, remember when times get tough, or finding other people's stories to then remember, oh, I can do it. So that the Women of Color thing, the Women of Color award group and magazine does have incredible stories. And there are videos on the website. There's a whole magazine of these really powerful stories of how people have overcome these various obstacles to get where they are. And so whether your mentor is someone live and in person that you're able to talk to, or a person out of a magazine that you've never met before, but you somehow click with their story, I think that's a great way to be able to get through those hard times.
I like that advice.
Thank you.
That's good. Well, we always leave our guests with the most difficult question to answer, and that is, we are on our last day here at the North American Regional Meeting for GLOBE.
Yeah.
And soon we will be flying home. And so let's say that you get home, and by some miracle, your entire next week is completely clear. You have no obligations. You could do anything, go anywhere, do anything you wanted. What would you do to relax and unwind?
Yeah, so my family loves going to the beach. So my husband and my two little girls, we would pack up and we would probably go spend some time on the beach. My favorite place to go is Cancun. So if I had unlimited quantities of money and plenty of time, I would go there. Mm-hmm. But part of my family, half of my family is Mexican, and we spent lots of time in Mexico for me when I was growing up. So I've been going to those beaches my whole life. And so that's exactly what I would do. Just go spend some family time together and enjoy the beach.
That sounds wonderful.
Yes, it does. That would be awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for letting me talk.
We appreciate it.
We do. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate it immensely.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to our podcast.
If you love Superheroes of Science, be sure to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or your preferred podcast player. Be sure to join us as we add interviews of scientists and incorporate discussions of current trends in K-12 science.
Until next time, be super, and remember, you are someone's hero. Boiler up.
Hammer down.